for, guys? Today we're going to be doing a Unity tutorial. Basically, as you can see on my screen here, I have started a new project. I named that project Technivorous tutorial. You can see at the top. The only package that I added was the standard assets. And I added those when I was making the package and importing them. You can see those down here under packages now that my screen's all loaded up. Under standard assets. And then there's some things. These are the standard packages that Unity imports, such as ads, analytics, in-app purchases, stuff like that. So, one of the most important things when you're dealing with Unity, because the projects can get quite large, is to immediately go into your assets folder, and I'm going to create a folder called resources. The reason I'm doing that is because Unity has a handy method called get resources, load resources, that'll load pretty much anything that's in this folder through code with one command. Basically, it's pretty easy and it works really well. So I'm going to put most of my actual assets in here, and I'm going to create a couple of other folders just to help with the workflow a little bit and keep things organized. So the first one I'm going to create is going to be scripts. And I'm going to create another one called GFX, that's for my graphics. Now I've gotten in the habit of doing this almost by rote, so I don't really need a couple of these folders for what we're going to be doing. But these 4 folders here are my pretty standard folders that I'll have in pretty much any project. I add them right away just because it helps me keep things organized. So we have our graphics, our sound effects, our scripts, and our prefabs. All of these things are things that might need to be accessed by code, so they're pretty easy to access by going through resources. Your prefabs folder you definitely want in here, because prefabs are pre-made objects. You'll understand a little bit what they do and what they are. But in order to load one into your screen or instantiate one, this is the quickest way to grab one without having one already in your scene. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a little bit, but for right now, let's get into this tutorial. It's going to be all about first-person and first-person motion. So I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is delete the main camera here, and the reason why is because I'm going to add my own in a minute. I'm going to add a 3D object. Okay, so I add by right-clicking over here, clicking 3D object, and clicking terrain. Okay, so here's my terrain. Pretty simple so far. I am going to go ahead and go into the terrain editor that's over here in the inspector, and I'm going to click on paint terrain. And what I'm going to do is go in here. This is different paint brushes basically, and I'm going to go to the razor lower terrain brush. I'm going to grab this guy right here. Basically this is just going to create some little hills, so when we're running around we can okay, let's just do this. There we go. My shift key doesn't seem to want to be working. I'm going to take the brush size down a little bit more, and we're just going to, that's a little steep. Let's take the opacity way down. We're just going to create a few little bumps here. We'll get into using the terrain tool a lot more later. Basically I'm just doing this because I'm not going to add color to the terrain. I'm not going to add a texture. It's pretty easy to do, but don't really need to for this scene. So the next thing I'm going to do, you can see that there's different height variation, and that's one of the reasons that I changed the terrain, is so you can see when we're walking around that you're actually moving. Otherwise, it kind of looks like you're standing still. So don't worry about making this exact. You don't need to worry about any certain specifications or anything. Just give it a little bit of bump so it's got height to it in some places. Next I'm going to go in here into my standard assets. I'm going to grab these guys. Let's see, I want characters, first person, And then prefabs. There you have this prefab folder for them in here. So I'm going to grab, there's two in here. There's the FirstPersonController and the rigid body first-person controller. We want a rigid body because that means it'll collide with things. So I'm going to take that, drag it and drop it. Now if we go up in here and we look here on our main camera, okay, the camera is attached to the rigid body first-person controller. Okay, this is the camera's view. This is the person themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lift them up so they're out of the ground here. This is our character. It is a first person, so it doesn't have a mesh. It has a mesh for collision purposes. It has a capsule collider, but it doesn't have an actual object attached to it. So if I had another camera looking at my person, they wouldn't see anything right now. And that's another thing that we can fix later. First, we're just going to take this guy, and because of the plug-and-play nature of the Unity assets, we can pretty much just hit play. So give it a second to load up here. It'll switch over to our game view, and then we'll have keyboard and mouse control. Now the way that this one is set up is the mouse is the look parameter. It'll look up and down and left and right, and then you're going to use your WASD keys to move. Pretty standard for a PC game. Let's see, what's taking so long there, Unity? There we go. It took a little while, but I do have some other things running, so as you see, I can look around. Now, the up and down would be easy to tell if the scene were flat, okay? But the left and right, it'd be hard for you to see if I was looking left or right. So let's test the movement controls. First, we're going to go forward. Working pretty well. It's a little bit easier to see my movement when I texture things, but you can see that I'm moving here. And this is just the forward key. I'm just basically looking in the direction I want to walk and walking that way. Crest this big hill up here. Take a look around. Okay, now that's walking right. It's walking left. It's not bad. Let's see what else we got. Standard controls. You can't really tell right now, but I'm jumping. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to texture this just real quick. Make it a little bit easier to see. So I have another folder over here. Alright, I'm going to my resources. I know technically it's a graphic, but I use that mostly for title graphics and stuff like that. I'll have a different folder for sprites and a different folder for textures. This is going to be my textures folder. I am only going to bring in one. Let's make it desert. Let's do that. Oh, that doesn't really fit with the hills. Let's do some tundra. There we go, that'll do. Take that and I can pretty much drag and drop. Okay, you'll see it here. Go back into my terrain, paintbrush. I'm going to grab paint texture, okay? And in order to do this, I got to edit the terrain layers, and I need to create a layer because I don't have one yet. And I'm going to go. This is the window that pops up when I click create. I know I'm looking for this snow bump, so I'm going to go type it in partially, and it pops up. There we go. So you can use this paintbrush to individually paint textures, and you can paint different textures on top of each other with different transparency levels. Like I said, we'll do that in another tutorial, but hopefully you can see a little bit better now when I go back into the game mode. The movement that I'm talking about here. Okay, yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, so forward, right, left, jump, jump. Also included with the first-person controller here is if you hold down the left shift, you'll run, so I get a little speed boost there, and you can see me slowing down. I like to jump off of things and just okay. Alright, well, we have our first-person controller moving around. That's going to be it for this tutorial, guys. In our next tutorial, I will show you how to make a targeting reticle. That will be part of the UI. It will show up basically as the HUD. We'll work on that, and maybe a couple other things. I don't know. Maybe I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with this game yet. It's basically just to show you how to implement some of the ideas, but I definitely want to get into some code, which we haven't done yet. So we'll definitely do that in the next video. Stay tuned.